Hey y'all, I'm Ellen. We've been super inspired by our journeys of self-healing and discovery.
And I'm Sam, and we want to share our experiences with you to help you get curious about yourself, reconnect, and get intentional about your life so you know what makes you happy.
Welcome to Woo New, the podcast. I'm really excited about this conversation today. We have Lisa Wimberger, who is the inventor of Neurosculpting and the founder of the Neurosculpting Institute, with us today. And she's also one of the co-founders of the NeuroPraxis App, which we talked about a couple of episodes ago with Jody Levy. And both Sam and I's minds were blown by everything that Jody had to share with us about this app. I have since shared it with my husband, who can't get enough, and I've been loving it myself, just sitting outside, staring at the trees and listening to these meditations. And it's unlike any, I don't want to call it meditation because it's really not meditation, but
I know, it's like too easy for meditation, but it's so magical.
It's so magical. And it's like these guided sessions. I'm not going to talk about it because I want Lisa to explain what it is. But thank you so much, Lisa, for being here with us and just opening our minds and our hearts to everything neuroscience. And I'm so excited to talk about neurosculpting with you.
Yeah, so great to be here. Jody was very excited after speaking with you last time, and so I'm really looking forward to this conversation.
Yeah, likewise.
It's so divine that she put us in touch with you, because what you've created is such a gift to be, to be shared with everyone, and your story is so fascinating. Like where this whole journey started for you sounds like it was, you went through quite a lot of challenges, and we'd love to hear some more about that.
Yeah, I'm chuckling because every time I start telling stories about my life, I'm like, was that me? That sounds crazy. But yeah, it did. Neurosculpting came out of desperation for me to heal myself. It came out of deep fear that I was going to leave my very young daughter motherless. It just came from a really deep personal space. So I didn't have an intention of being a business person, an entrepreneur, a maker, in anything. I was just really looking to heal myself. And so the very short of the long of it is that I had a seizure disorder that manifested after a traumatic incident when I was 15. I was hit by lightning on my birthday.
Oh my gosh.
In the base of the spine, and started having seizures about a week later. That summer I started having my first seizures, and I didn't know I was having seizures. I thought I was fainting. A lot of times this would happen in front of friends, not really happen so much in front of my parents. So they would get third-party tales of this happening. And so it's hard to pinpoint what goes on for a 15-year-old when you're a parent who doesn't see the anomaly, right? So is she making it up? Is this hyperbole? What's going on? And honestly, I didn't talk about it much with them. I was ashamed. I didn't want anyone to know.
Mm-hmm.
It was very embarrassing to just faint. But what I didn't know was they were actually seizures. And as the years progressed and the fainting spells, in quotes, progressed, I was less and less able to recuperate. So the first few were, I fainted. I'm a little bit confused. I can get up. I can function. But by the time I would say 19 or 20, that's not what recovery looked like. It was, I can't get off the floor for hours. I can't hold my bowels. I can't hold my urine. I sometimes can't hold my vomit. And I would pray that I could either clean myself up before someone got home, or usually they would happen like after school when I was in high school or in college. And I would just crawl back to my room And then my parents would come home from work and I would just act like I was taking a nap. But as I got into my later 20s and then my early 30s, the recuperation took days. I couldn't really walk. I couldn't use my muscles to any degree. I was shaky. I wasn't able to stand very much for like, sometimes 10 hours, sometimes a whole day. And then what ended up happening was the episodes were getting worse in severity. And I was in and out of what I now know is bradycardia, where my heart would stop. My heart rate would drop so fast that it would just stop. And I flatlined in a gynecological exam.
Oh my gosh.
And that's where I got the gift of a doctor actually witnessing these. Up until that point, my parents took me for evaluations because I told them this was happening. And back then, the diagnosis I got was she's hormonal.
Oh
What?
my God.
Yeah.
Of course, that's what they said.
When I was 17, shortly, like after these were happening for 2 summers, my parents did take me to the doctor and they did a blood test. I don't really know what it was they were looking for, but they told me that I was hormonal. That was the only thing I ever knew. But during a gynecological exam in my early 30s, I said to the doc, I'm going to faint because, I know what it feels like. It happens all the time. It's been happening for decades.
It coming, yeah.
And he said, oh, no problem. And what I woke up to was him just like pasty white and freaking out. And he had a needle of atropine in his hand and he was about to inject it into my heart.
Oh, wow.
And I couldn't speak. I couldn't move. I could only open my eyes. And his hand was shaking. And the nurse was looking at me like I had just been resurrected or something. And he said, you flatlined. You lost your heartbeat. You weren't breathing. You turned blue. We were about to resuscitate you. Have you ever had these seizures before? It's the first time I ever heard anyone say I had a seizure. And I looked at him and I could barely speak, but I ended up telling him I've had them since I was 15. And I couldn't move for 4 hours. He had me on his exam table in the clinic for 4 hours before they could even roll me because
Wow.
I was like 9,000 pounds of just pure tonic muscle contraction. And I couldn't move because I would vomit. And they ended up taking me home. I couldn't even get home myself. So they took me home. And he told me that they were going to have me evaluated. They did EEGs, EKGs, they didn't find epilepsy patterns. And so he told me that I had vasovagal seizures. He called it syncope, and syncope is generally fainting spells because of a nervous response to either stress or fear or blood or going from sitting to standing too fast. Very common to have those. But mine were so extreme that they were into tonic-clonic grand mal seizures, which is an anomaly for what I now know is a very extreme freeze response.
Wow.
Oh.
At that point, had you put together, or did the doctors know about you getting hit by lightning?
No, actually, I did tell the gynecologist, and he said it's very possible that was a culprit in making my nervous system hypervigilant. But honestly, I didn't care where it came from. I just wanted it gone.
Right.
They were getting really bad. I mean, I flatlined in front of my 3-year-old in a food court in Whole Foods.
Oh.
And that was the second to last seizure that I ever had. It was extremely traumatic for all of us. She watched paramedics resuscitate me. She asked me if I died.
Oh, man.
And so, she's 3 and I was a single mom at the time. Her dad was around, but peripheral. And I started to have to teach my daughter 911 scripts.
Oh, my goodness.
The first thing my daughter ever learned how to do with a telephone was dial 911. And And I had to walk her through, what if this happens at home, here's what you do. And that was the second to last seizure, which already lit the fire of, oh my God, this is really, really, really bad.
Yeah.
But the last seizure I ever had, which kicked neurosculpting into being birthed, really, I could not recalibrate. I couldn't breathe on my own anymore. My husband was there. He was my boyfriend at the time, so he wasn't my husband then. He had to keep pushing on my chest because I was done. I remember witnessing my body from the ceiling. I remember saying, I'm not coming back. This has been, at this point, I was 38. I'm like, this has been like decades of me having to exit and then have to try to re-enter in the most painful way. It's extremely painful when your heart stops, and for a prolonged period of time, whether that's seconds or possibly even when I was in the doctor's office, it might have been in excess of a minute. I don't know.
Wow.
Long enough for them to go in the next room and get atropine and load the needle. So we're talking 45 seconds to maybe a minute and a half. That's a long time for your brain. And it's a long time for your body, because what happens when your heart kicks back up is that pins and needles feeling of when you've sat on your leg too long and there's no blood flow, and then you stand up and there's that excruciating, sensational pain of pins and needles at the start of your heart beating again. My whole body was in that, and I couldn't get out of my body, and I'm just in excruciating pain, but I also can't move because I've just spent all the energy out of my muscles in a tonic grand mal seizure. You contract so hard that you wake up drenched, and all of your kinetic energy has been spent in these profound contractions.
Wow.
And so now I can't move. You can't shake it off. You can't do anything but feel intense pain, excruciating sound in my ears, and just the inability to move and even know up from down. It would be like this vertigo of, I know I'm on the floor, but I feel like I'm hanging upside down and I don't know where to go to find equanimity. And so the last seizure I had was just this was just nonstop. And after some hours, and my husband crawled up the stairs with me. Took a really long time to crawl up the stairs, but I couldn't elevate. Even with help and assistance, I couldn't elevate because I was going to lose my stomach. I was going to lose my bowels. I was going to lose my urine. So all I could do was crawl. And I'm crawling up the stairs going, this can't happen again, because if it happens when I'm alone, I'm not coming back.
Yeah.
And I sort of bargained with myself. I said, I'm only coming back into that body if this is the last seizure I ever have. And now I have to figure out how to make it the last seizure I ever had. And all I had was the information the gynecologist gave me, which was your vasovagal. So in the meanwhile, now I'm trying to learn, what is my vagus nerve? What is it doing? Why does it do this? How is it connected to the heart and the gut and my bowels and my mind and stress? And so I'm on this mad rampage to educate myself, because I'm afraid I'm going to have another seizure alone at any moment.
Yeah.
And in that pursuit, I walked away from my meditation practice, because I had a meditation practice since I was 12, religious meditation practice, where I was so disciplined, it's ridiculous. I walked away from that because clearly that was not helping my stress seizures.
Yeah.
And I didn't know why it wasn't helping. I do now, but I didn't then. And I just had to go the science route. I had to go learn about physiology, neurology, neuroscience. And I never took classes to get a degree. I took classes to fix myself. So I didn't care about the letters behind my name. So I took medical neuroscience at Duke. I took neurobiology at University of Chicago. I took classes through University of Jerusalem. I took any class I could get my hands on for me. And in taking all those classes and learning about my nervous system, I unveiled an equation that I pieced together that made a lot of sense to me. And the equation was one that helped me talk to my brain and my central nervous system in a way that I could start regulating it. And more importantly, start unwinding the entrained response I had to stress and start patterning to a new one so that I could no longer have to have seizures in the face of stress that exceeded my threshold of tolerance. And I had to figure that out myself. And I did. And I didn't know it would work. I was piecing these meditational steps, putting them together in this particular sequence that I now call neurosculpting. And I was practicing on myself, and I thought, I'm desperate. I don't have any other choice. And I'm just praying with everything I have that this is going to work. And I'm going to do this kind of mental entrainment practice every day to try to talk to my nervous system and have it practice a new stress response as though I am practicing in a rehearsal for a play or a basketball game or choreography. I was literally rehearsing viscerally, mentally, emotionally, physically, how I could respond differently to stress inside of a meditational format. And after months of me using this as my only meditation, a seizure halo came. I was very stressed. I felt the halo come, which is the onset. And I thought, okay, I'm going to die. Today I'm going to die. This is it. But I had been doing the meditation rehearsal for, at that point, it was months. There was months in between those two seizures. And so the halo came, and the script I had been rehearsing kicked in on autopilot. As soon as I heard myself go like that, the script I had been rehearsing in my entrainment meditations kicked in, and I broke through the seizure. I didn't have the seizure, and my body went ballistic, like my body full on banshee. I was screaming sounds out of my throat I hadn't heard before. I was shaking. I was physically trying to break things. There was so much energy coming out of my body that previously had no permission to come out. So I would seize around it. But now I broke through that, and it all came out. And my boyfriend, who, again, my husband, was just beside himself, like witnessing, I don't know what is happening. But I ended up, he took me home. He put me I asked him to put me in a dark room. And just intuitively, I just wanted to be in a dark room by myself. And I just sat in the guest room in the dark, shivering and shaking for hours. And what I know now is that I was fully allowing the neurogenic tremors to reset my nervous system.
Oh,
wow.
And it was the neurosculpting meditation that gave me a pattern B that was entrained enough to engage. And pattern B then unlocked all of the neurogenic tremors that completely reset my nervous system. I think I was in there for hours and hours. When I was done, I wasn't done with the emotions, right? That there was emotions for years after that, but the physiology of my seizure patterns, I could feel at the end of that day. I could feel my bones were different. I could feel it was gone. And I don't really know how to explain that to in any empirical, measurable way, but I knew they were gone. And that was the last seizure I ever had. And it's been 16 years. And once I knew I broke through, and I realized that my daughter, who at this point had just turned 4, I'm like, okay, she has a mom. She's going to have a mom who doesn't die of a seizure. At that much I know. that's a gift. I bargained for that. I bartered for that. And I made a commitment that if that would happen, I would marry myself to this, and I would share this. And I couldn't renege, right, on my deal. So I literally quit my job. I was a project manager at a very large consulting firm. I quit my job and I was like, I have to share this with the world. And I shared it with the world, starting with one person at a time, and one police agency, because I had this mission to humanize the police industry by way of getting them out of their stress biases. And I started doing that, and it was years before I came up with the term neurosculpting. You know, I was teaching this in 2006, 2007. And then it got named Neurosculpting in 2011. And it's the same 5 steps, but I just named it at that point in time. And here we are, and now it helps people in trauma, it helps people in stress, it helps people in anxiety, depression, it helps sleep disorders, it helps support chronic illness recovery, it helps support addicts, cutters, entrepreneurs wanting to get out of self-sabotage. I mean, the applications went in directions I never expected and never knew. And it's absolutely mind-blowing for me to see that at this point, thousands and thousands and thousands of students and clients that have come through that report that this is the form that has unwound the thing that was the thorn in their side. And that's really all I ever wanted from it.
This is such an amazing story.
I know.
I have a question for you about neurosculpting, because ironically, I was at dinner last night with my mom and we were talking about how your body has neurons, your heart has neurons in it, your organs, they remember things. Yeah. And they have neurological connections as well. And so I'm wondering, like, as you're doing this entrainment with the brain, how does that interact with the neurons in your body?
You know, we have over 100 different kinds of neurons, and they all do different things. And the ones that are networked in the brain are networked for a lot of pattern recognition. And they correspond to associative learning and neuroplasticity and all the things that, we think of as when we think of neurons. And then there are neurons in organs, which function a little differently. Some of them are, motor neurons, which are helping contract, right? And giving a physiological response to things. Of course, they all talk to each other. And then, the gut, which is producing trillions of neurons, right? And actually we're making all of our serotonin in the gut, which is then used by the brain. So we're not separate parts and pieces. The world we live in now has very left-brained the body, right? It's broken the body up into parts and pieces and functions and separate systems and specialists and very granular approaches, which is extremely necessary. But we haven't right-brained the body yet in Western medicine. And when I say right-brain the body, we have an opportunity to look at the body and mind holistically, which, of course, now we have functional medicine and people, very skilled practitioners, getting systems to talk to each other. But the bottom line is it is all integrated. And so when we've got neurological activity in the brain corresponding to a pattern, we've got nerve fibers that communicate those instructions to then create a physiological response in the organs. So that's still one thing. Mm-hmm. That's still an event. And it's an event that has 2 endpoints, but it's one event. And the opposite is true. We'll have organ proprioception, nociception, right? We'll have enteric experience in our gut that comes in through the body, through the skin, through temperature changes, through anything, even viruses, right? Can have an event in the body, and then there'll be a corresponding neurological event in the mind, which is trying to then respond to the signals from the body. And all of that is happening through the 10th cranial nerve, the vagus nerve, which is the bidirectional highway that goes from brain to body, body to brain. And so I like to think of things as a spectrum. And Alan Watts, I'm in love with him. Alan Watts.
My husband is literally reading him right now. It's so crazy that you brought him up. That's so amazing.
Yeah. What book is your husband reading?
It's a collection of essays. I forget what the title of the book is, but yeah.
Well, you can't go wrong with Alan Watts as far as I'm there. We think of things as duality, right, wrong, left, right, black, white, yes, no, life, death. And that is not how it works. And Alan Watts articulates it better than anybody, but this is kind of how the body works too. There's only one way to give life meaning and define it, and that is to have death. And there's only one way to give black meaning and define it, and that is to have the opposite in the color spectrum, which is white.
Yes.
And so one thing is not the opposite of the other. One thing is only made manifest by the other. That's birth and creation. And when we look at the body as all the systems in the body are birthing and creating each other in all moments, then we'll stop looking at, take this particular medicine for this particular motor neuron in this particular part of your body. And so, we're part of a spectrum. And so I'm quite sure there are things about organ neurons that we don't yet know of that mimic and complement what's happening in the brain and vice versa. But we can't silo the parts and pieces of ourselves anymore. We're seeing it reflected in humanity right now.
100%.
And the longer the individual believes he or she or it is an individual, and the longer that particular individual believes it's made of parts and pieces that can be compartmentalized, some honored and some ignored, we're screwed.
Right.
Can you take us through the parts, I guess? I don't even know what the right word is, but
like the 5 steps.
Yeah, the 5 steps of neurosculpting. I just want to reflect, because as I was doing some of these, how would you call it? I mean, they're not meditations, but they are meditations. What is the word that you use for these modules?
I call them neurosculpting meditations, but I always call them neurosculpting meditations, as very definitively not other kinds.
Gotcha. Okay, that makes a lot of sense.
That makes sense.
Yeah, neurosculpting meditations. I mean, I love the fact that there's a somatic piece to it, or there's many somatic pieces to it, but the placing of the hand on a particular part of the body that, that whoever's using it or whoever's listening is making that connection. I like all these different parts. I found that I don't typically get that with most, like traditional kind of meditations. It's not that way. And the more I feel like I learn about this stuff, the more, and even, going to couples therapy and stuff like that. So working somatically is just, it feels like it's the key to any kind of trauma at all.
Yeah.
So could you break it down for us?
Yeah, I'd be happy to, but you brought up all these images for me. So I just want to say it's the equivalent of living in a filthy house, trying to clean yourself and not realizing that every time you walk through a certain room, all the filth in that room gets you dirty again, and you keep going back to clean yourself, and it hasn't even occurred to you to clean the house too.
Yes.
That's a beautiful metaphor.
Exactly how it feels.
We live in bodies, right? Whether you believe we are spirits that chose those bodies or that we're random biological events or whatever you believe, you're only believing that because you're in a body able to believe it. Okay, so we have a body. My meditation practice for decades, all the different forms I was trained in, never cared about the body. It asked me to recognize I am not my body. I am more than my body. And it asked me to ignore my pain and sit through it, which is one form of really cool exploration, but it doesn't help someone who's already dissociated.
Yes,
And
I found that too. Sorry to cut you off, but I was
yes,
having similar issues. Like when I was super detached from my body, like my legs were going numb. It was like I felt like my body was so alien to me.
Mm-hmm.
So connecting those dots was almost impossible.
yes, yes. So give a standard type of meditation where you exit and you watch your thoughts and you dissociate from your body. You give that to someone on the freeze spectrum physiologically, they already know how to do that. So they love it because it's more escape and it's more permission to not feel the body. They're already expert in that. I was an expert in dissociation, which is why I loved meditation more than anything, because it was noble permission to stay dissociated.
Wow.
And it did not help my central nervous system at all. You give that kind of meditation to someone in aggression, it's exactly what they need. They need to learn their body doesn't govern their impulsive response. They need that. It's super amazing for people in aggression. It's detrimental to dissociative stress response. So all that to preface the 5 steps. When you are going through a neurosculpting meditation or a module on NeuroPraxis, you, the user, you're just going to feel like you're hearing a really fun, playful story. The intention is for you to not have to do much but listen. And the application is I, the skilled facilitator, am walking you through 5 very structured steps that are speaking to your brain and nervous system in such a specific way that it feels organic and effortless to you, but we're having no resistance and profound entrainment potential. Because learning in its best form happens when 2 things are present: non-sleep deep rest combined with focused attention. If you listen to Andrew Huberman, he will tell you that that is part of a neuroplastic container. Non-sleep deep rest coupled with focused attention is gold for your nervous system to be ripe, receptive, and ready to learn something new or unlearn something old. And so you have to get your brain and nervous system to those 2 things before any change will happen. And here's the first 2 steps. We go to non-sleep deep rest in step 1. And when you're listening to the meditations, it sounds like me just inviting you to notice your breath is regular, consistent, the ground is solid beneath you, there's things about your environment that are comfortable. I'm actually helping you dial down your midbrain stress response. I'm getting you closer to deep rest. Step 2, once you're marinating in deep rest, I need to up your focused attention. I need to activate it. And I do that by inviting the front of your brain, the prefrontal cortex, to do what it does best. Get really active around novelty, humor, wonder, and amusement. And the best way for me to do that for the listener is to invite you to think of bizarre, ridiculous, humorous things. What would it be like if you could imagine a triangle made of circles? Or if green had a flavor, what would it taste like? So step 2, I'm activating focused attention with meaningless prompts that are playful, whimsical, and they're not heavy, they're not loaded. So you're not going into any alarm bells at this point. So now in steps 1 and 2, which takes about 5 minutes if you're looking at, a 20-minute meditation, that's about 5 minutes worth. I have helped you create the neuroplastic entrainment container. Non-sleep deep rest coupled with focused attention. Now your brain is ready to learn efficiently, more effortlessly than it did before, and it's listening. And so now we move to step 3. What do we want to tell a listening nervous system? And in step 3, that's what I call the toggle. Step 3 is a storytelling time because the nervous system is listening, except this storytelling I do in a very specific way. I want the user to have bilateral stimulation. I want you to cross the midline of your brain. I want to keep you out of any default lateralized stress patterns you might have. I want to increase activity across the midline because we know that also helps neuroplastic engagement. And I do that very specifically in the storytelling, where I might tell you the story of your old pattern that you're releasing or the new pattern that you're imagining. I'm going to spell words. I'm going to sequence things. I'm going to say numbers. I'm going to ask you to make a list and prioritize it. I am engaging your left brain language.
Oh my God, that's why you spell the words out.
That's why I spell the words.
Whoa, that's so cool.
And then I don't want you to stay there. So I'm going to start asking you if there are colors and textures and sounds and shapes and abstract symbols that come to mind, because I want your more symbolic right brain language centers to get involved. And in this way, I toggle you across the midline while I'm telling you a story, while your nervous system is listening all ears, while in non-sleep deep rest coupled with focused attention.
What? I'm just so mind blown by this. This is the coolest thing I've ever heard of.
I know.
And wait, there's more. And now there's the part, Samantha, that you were talking about, which is the body, the soma. We need to link the body sensations and perceptions to the mind perceptions so that we get those two things talking the same language. And so at this point, once I've told you a story across the midline of your brain, I'm going to ask you to do a body scan. I'm going to ask you to notice, imagine, feel, perceive, or make up. Your body doesn't know the difference, really. Any of those things. Where in your body are these colors, these shapes, these words? What is happening? What are the perceived sensations? Where is your body responding in real time to this story? And if the response is a negative contraction, then we soften it with breathing and more visualization. If the response is a positive, we're already there, great. Either way, we're going to shift the response to make sure it's positive. And then we're going to anchor into it with a somatic cue. I'm going to ask you to make a hand gesture or put your non-dominant hand there. And this really is accessing Hebb's law of neuroplasticity. Things that link in time simultaneously, even if they are unrelated, will create neural connections. Yeah. This is how Pavlov trains a dog to salivate at the sound of a bell. So CBT principles here. So you have a mind shift. You've shifted a story in an entrainment pattern playfully across the midline. Whole body's listening and noticing. Now you go find it in your body. You soften it. You adjust it. You get your body comfortable. Now you mark that experience, because now body and mind are having a somatic and perceptual, better new experience. And you mark it with your hand or hand gesture. You could even mark it with a scent, like an essential oil at that moment, or rubbing a worry stone. Any somatic cue you can link in that moment, if you repeat that over a few repetitions of the meditation, that somatic cue will activate quite a bit of subconscious recall. I like to do hand gestures because you always have your hand with you, versus an essential oil as the only way in, because what if you're out and you no longer have your lavender oil, and now the one thing that helped you remember to breathe out during anxiety is no longer in your purse.
Right.
So excuse me while the ambulance goes. So step 4 is the somatic cue. That is really Hebb's law of entrainment, somatic entrainment. And then step 5 is I offer an opportunity to give a linguistic anchor point or trigger point for the meditation. And I ask you to imagine a word, a name, a phrase, because ultimately that can become your mantra, your affirmation,
Mm.
but it's only really going to work because you've already preloaded the meaning of it with an experience, which leads me to, I'm feeling a soapbox coming up. It leads me to want to say one thing about affirmations and mantras. You really don't know what your subconscious mind has deciphered that affirmation to mean. Your conscious mind reads the words, I feel abundant. Your conscious mind is like, yeah, I want more of that. I'm going to say that mantra. Your subconscious mind may have a very different meaning for abundance, a meaning made up of memories of lack and not having it and not worthy of it. And so now when your conscious mind says, I am abundant, your subconscious mind is pulling up its meanings, which are antithetical to what you hope it does. And no, that mantra is not going to work for you. I'm
Oh,
sorry. You can say it
whoa.
5,000 times.
I'm
It,
so glad that you just explained that, because
Seriously.
I feel like that's a really big hurdle with
uh,
mantras and intentions, even, because
yes.
it's like,
Because you don't know what your subconscious is
exactly.
defining.
Yeah.
But if you just had an experience, non-sleep deep rest, high focused attention, a new entrainment pattern that you've marked with a physiological marker, and you've moved your body into a better physiological space of regulation, and then you name that experience, well, then you have programmed that word and that phrase. And that is the mantra that's going to work for you because you already gave it meaning. And that's how step 5 works. So these 5 steps together not only give you a real-time experience of regulation and entrainment, but then have loaded triggers, much like post-hypnotic triggers, right? Where let's say you do the meditation 5 times over the course of a week, and you've tapped that part of your body, or you've made a particular hand gesture, and you've said the word chocolate at the end of the meditation every time. What do you think is going to happen week 2 when you're making that hand gesture in real time, or you hear or say the word chocolate? You're going to have associative subconscious recall to a regulated shift you've programmed, which means you're going to be able to access, exercise, and reinforce that in your nervous system with one hand gesture at a very mild level over the course of the day. And this is how you go to the gym, right? You don't go to the gym one Sunday a month for 5 hours. You go to the gym 1 hour a week for 5 weeks, or 2 half-hour workouts twice a week. With neuroplasticity, it is repetition over time combined with frequency. And the way to get more frequent repetitions is to add meaning to interesting small triggers. So you can do those throughout the day, doing micro repetitions until you get to the time where you can do a full meditation and do a large repetition.
This is blowing my
Wow.
mind.
Oh, I know.
I,
So what, sorry, Elle.
go ahead, go ahead, go ahead.
Um, is there a benefit to doing multiple of these meditations in a day, if you could say doing one in the morning or one at night, or is doing 2 in one day not really an effective way to increase the frequency?
You know, I think it's user experience at this point. I think for me, I've got very different meditation storylines for different things that I want to entrain to. And sometimes I will do 2 different ones in a day, but sometimes I want to dive deep and just see and note that the pattern is changing, and I might just stick with one for a while. And so it's really up to you to design how it works best. I would try it both ways and see which way feels more effective for you.
So the ones that I've been doing have been like, first of all, I love the way you break out the app into in it
And beyond it,
and
yeah.
beyond it, you know, and I mean, I just so many things I could say about this, but the in it in particular, I feel like, so little backstory here. I've been in couples therapy with my husband for the last year or so, and he's somebody that deals with anxiety. And it's, I feel like every time we go to couples therapy every other week, there's always something having to do with his anxiety that comes through. And so, our therapist is giving us different tools and things like that to use with his anxiety to kind of basically regulate his body when he's in those anxious states and those triggered states. But I was looking and I was doing the depression, fear, and safety one. And I feel like at a time like this that we're living in with COVID and all that stuff, I mean, everybody's anxiety levels are so much higher. Everybody's fear is so much activated that I feel like something like this, just even this one module, could completely revolutionize and transform the state of our world right now, just by essentially giving people a tool that they can use when they are in their fear triggered states. That is so easy. It's like it's pressing a play button and listening and being able to just, because I think that's the I feel like that's the issue I keep on seeing is people, even those of us who are going to, therapy and stuff like that, are given tools. It's like actually using the tools in the moment, and you've made it so simple to do that.
That came out of my client practice, and it came out of my history of okay, so what I saw in myself and what I saw in others is when you're in it, you're in the forest and you don't know how to get out.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
That is a very different set of stressors than when you've gotten out of the forest and now you're trying to never go back. There's different parts of you that come out, different patterns that come out. And what I saw with my clients is that once they were out of acute inflammation for whatever their stress was, they were now in deeper fear of anything that would remotely resemble their journey back there. And then they were like trying to renegotiate, who am I now? Am I still diagnosed as that thing? There was just so much confusion post acute trauma, and a whole different set of confusion in acute trauma. And when we were creating the app, I was like, it has to be two very different experiences, same categories, right? Depression when you're in it, depression when you're out of it, but they look different and they play the body differently, as though the body were making different music. And it had to be addressed for when you're in it and when you're out of it, trying to shed those stories. So yeah, there was a very specific rhyme and reason for us to do that. And I hope, Ellen, that you just manifested that this is what the world needs, because in my heart, I believe I wouldn't have married myself to this. I wouldn't be alive today if it weren't for this. And so I have a ridiculous amount of faith in this modality, faith that is sometimes blind, loves science, but also doesn't care to slow down if the science hasn't caught up with me yet, right? It's like this beautiful duality. But I have such unshakable faith that this can help humanity, that I just disseminate it wherever I can. And it's really nice to hear someone else say that.
Yeah.
And not me.
No, 100%. I mean, that's, the more I was using it, the more I was like, holy shit, everyone needs to get this app for their triggers, and I know that there is a very specific use for, biotoxicity and these very, like pain, acute pain, and those types of, really, really deep traumas. And it's like, as we're talking, I'm even thinking about, I literally just got back from the city where I was hanging out with a friend of mine who is, at this moment, is kind of self-diagnosing her daughter as potentially having ADHD. And, her daughter is very emotional and she feels really deeply. And so she has these very extreme emotions. And part of the challenge that she's finding is that when her daughter is, like freaking out about something that to her seems very, very small and minor, she doesn't really know how to get her to calm down except to give her a hug and to like bring her in and, assure her that she's loved. Yeah, by touch, right? But what if this child is like at school or, and things are happening, and there's so many use cases. I mean, this is life. Like you've created something that is basically,
So powerful.
yeah, like it needs to be a life companion for every human
I
being.
know.
It's my life companion, I'll tell you that.
I I something you had mentioned earlier made me wonder, like, as you're reprogramming these neurological responses or to, subconscious associations to words or triggers, like, can you use these meditations to proactively reassociate your
Mhm.
subconscious? So, for example, just to continue on the example that you had used earlier about the word abundance. So, like, if I wanted to know that, then the next time I want to say this mantra around abundance, that it's going to actually create the energy and the neurological connections that I want it to. Um, how do we apply it in that from that
Yes.
lens? If
So
does that question make sense?
yes, step 3, the storytelling, can be one of two things or a hybrid. It can be either you telling yourself a story of unchoreographing an old pattern, or it can be a story of you telling yourself a new entrainment to a new concept, or it can be a hybrid. You can unchoreograph an old story and then sweep a new story in behind it. And so, yes, so choreography, I'm just going to use dancer language here. If you've practiced a choreography incorrectly and you've gotten really good at it, you can do one of two things. You can correct your mistakes and unlearn what you've entrained to, or you can learn a brand new routine the right way the first time. And so, yes, in step 3, you can work on an old pattern and edit it, or you can create a brand new association, never before even in your life. You never even had to have had the experience. If I decide I want to entrain green to equal laughter, then I can choose to do a neurosculpting meditation where every time I tell the story in step 3, I am imagining all different shades of green. I am bringing up the funniest jokes I ever remember. I am remembering getting tickled, and I am linking those things in my body, and I'm making a hand gesture. And what do you think is going to happen after 10 repetitions of that? The next time I see green, a gentle smile may cross my face. So yes, it's proactive, it's preventative, it's acute, it's in it, it's beyond it.
Can you explain the difference between neurosculpting and a modality like hypnotherapy? Because that's something that Sam and I sort of dabbled in the very beginning of our journey, our healing journey. And I'm just so curious, like, because on the, like, I know that the nitty gritty, like the technicalities of it are very, very different and the intentionality is very different. But on the outset, like, um, it seems like hypnotherapy also is about rewiring
Yeah.
neurons, right? So what is the big difference there?
Yeah. Well, as someone who is not a hypnotherapist, but very basically trained in autogenic hypnosis and some forms of self-hypnosis, I can tell you they're bedfellows.
Hmm.
Mm.
They both have inductions that need to speak to your nervous system. Ours is a step 1 and 2 that I described to you in hypnosis. It's a little different. They both have a lot of creative storytelling. They both have you programming in associated triggers. I think the languaging is very different. There's something that neurosculpting does that I haven't experienced in hypnosis. In hypnosis, I've experienced a lot of direct command language. See yourself walking down a flight of steps. At the bottom of the steps, there is a
Yeah.
XYZ, right? That's direct command language, which works really well in hypnotherapy. We never, never, never go direct command language in neurosculpting. In fact, I train our practitioners that if they do that, they're doing it incorrectly. So as a facilitator, we are not allowed to use direct command language because we run the risk of stripping someone of their autonomy and causing a stress response. So that is one major difference that I have built into the system, which no other meditation form I have ever experienced does this. It is the languaging of the facilitator that helps create the safety of the container so that you remain an autonomous person able to make your own decisions inside that meditation.
Gotcha. That makes so
And
much
so
sense.
now that you know that little secret, when you go back and listen to NeuroPraxis, you're going to hear everything I say is an open-ended question that does not have a yes/no response, that only gives you options. What would it be like if the sun could shine on you right now? Could that feel like something? Or instead, do you have an image? Or maybe that shows up differently. That's the language I use. And that's the language every single one of our trained practitioners is trained in. And that is a major game changer that distinguishes neurosculpting from any other meditation or even hypnosis form out there, is the attenuation we have to preserving the autonomy of the individual.
And so by stripping the autonomy, what I'm getting is that you could potentially re-traumatize the person.
You could I mean, some people are totally fine with it. I'm fine with it in hypnosis. I love hypnosis. But there are people who, okay, you tell me if you've had this experience. Have you ever been in a guided meditation where someone asks you to imagine yourself on a beach and part of you's like, damn it, I wanted to be on the mountaintop?
Yeah. Or I'm like, I kind of am like, oh yeah, it'd be nice to go to a beach, but like I can't visualize it at all.
Right. Or they say, imagine a beautiful sunset of red and yellow. You're like, yeah, no, my sunset's purple. So those are examples of mild autonomy hits where a moment of resistance comes up because you're being told what to think and feel and experience. And that is 99.9% of all guided meditation. The best of the best apps out there don't honor autonomy.
Yes.
Not because they don't want to, it's because they're not focusing on the language. They're maybe focusing on the form only, but the language is as much of the form as the 5 steps itself. In the same way that I can create a sentence in English that has subject verb agreement, but if I'm using only expletives in that sentence, it's an offensive sentence, even though my grammar is correct.
Right.
This is the same with meditation. You can have the best intentions, but damn it, I don't want to be on the beach.
You're totally opening my eyes to the way I do my shamanic journeys now, and it's funny because just like, again, reflecting on my own journey in learning how to guide, and then also now sort of about a year or two, like about a year and a half, I would say, into it, I'm realizing that the more comfortable I am with guiding, the less I have to paint the picture.
Yes.
You know?
Yes. And you create that autonomy for the other person, and they then feel their experience is relevant and meaningful and very specific to them. And how in the world did you do that, Ellen? It was like you were in my head. And it's actually you just being comfortable and not having to give them their imagery.
Right.
Yeah, that resonated really deeply with me when I was doing the meditations in the NeuroPraxis app, because I'm one of those people who I have moments of hesitation in guided meditations. Like I'll have sometimes 5 or 10 of them, and even though I come out of the meditation feeling good, it's like I know that I didn't get as much out of it as I could have. But then as soon as I started doing these meditations, I noticed immediately you used words like you're being invited to, or imagine instead of visualize, or these, and like asking the open-ended questions and offering more than one in a way that it's like you see that any experience in any direction in your mind that it takes you is valid.
It's permissible.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was very, very intentional. And that's how we train our facilitators. And we run them through, they have to guide meditations in their practicum. And we are absolutely cueing into their language and we are reshaping. It's actually the hardest part for our facilitators is to unlearn command language. It's very, very difficult. It's not intuitive at all.
Yeah.
And it takes people deeper into their own subconscious permissions than if they're receiving commands.
Yeah. Wow, that's so much to think about right now.
I know.
I wanted to also bring up, because we were sort of chatting before we started before we hit record, and you were talking about the neuroplasticity and the fact that the difference between meditation and a neuropraxis meditation is that it's almost kind of in the sense of coping. Coping versus actually like addressing the issue and facing the issue. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. So imagine for me, it's like the kinds of meditations that I used to do were like putting topical anti-itch cream on eczema.
Yeah.
And the neurosculpting meditations are downregulating the inflammation response so I don't get eczema.
Yeah.
That's the difference for me. Now, I don't know that that's the case with everybody, but that certainly was the case for me. My transcendental meditation practice was keeping me dissociated. It was helping me cope with moments of stress by having moments of escape, but I wasn't able to apply it to then responding differently to stress in the future. I could recuperate from stress, but I didn't rewire my initial response to stress, and I needed something to rewire the response because the coping was no longer working.
So in essence, it's like it was helping you to regulate in the moment, but it wasn't addressing the actual problem.
Correct.
Gotcha.
Correct.
Okay.
So there's an application for it.
Yeah.
It's just not what I needed.
Right. Yeah, that's super interesting because I have noticed too in my own experience with stress triggers that I have these moments where it's almost like my consciousness like floats outside my body and I'm like watching myself in this situation, but my body is like frozen. And I'm just like, it's like I'm observing it from a different vantage point, but navigating through how to interact in my body is yeah. But I do have a question though about which is now the opposite question of what I had just previously asked, which is, if you don't know exactly what the specific stress triggers are, or you're just wanting to reprogram something that's a general reaction, and you get into that storytelling part of the app or the meditation, do you have to specifically, when you ask a question like, oh, what is it that you want to release? Do you
don't have to know any specifics.
Okay.
You can say, I would like to release the stress that has no name, right? And you can give it colors, textures, shapes in your mind and still release. It may not be clear to you what you're releasing, but you can still prompt your subconscious mind to release the thing that it's ready to release, but it's not ready to reveal to you exactly what it is.
Oh God, I love this. This is the coolest thing I've ever heard.
And this is the thing that I want to make clear. Neurosculpting is not therapy. It is not psychotherapy. It's not therapeutic. It's not therapy. It's a tool of self-regulation. And the reason it's not those things is because it does not require you to investigate, understand, resolve emotional issues. It only requires that you go find what they're doing to your nervous system and shift your nervous system around it. Then those things can shift on their own. But what happens is in the meditations, a lot of times you do get those insights, but the intention is you don't need to do that kind of work to use neurosculpting. We want you to do that kind of work with a licensed therapist in a therapeutic format, and neurosculpting is the tool.
I love that you brought this point up, and this may be, I don't know if this is like exactly connected to what you just said, but what I was like reflecting on as you were talking is I just had this conversation with a friend about how I think we as humans try so hard to understand our trauma, to understand what happened, to like go back and really, sort of like really break it down so we
Yeah.
fully understand, because
Mm-hmm.
we're linear thinkers, right? We're linear creatures. And she and I, what we were talking about was when it comes to like even energy work and things like that, it's not about understanding. It's really just about feeling and accepting,
Yeah.
and letting go of the need to understand, letting go of the need to like break it down and like,
I mean, if knowing the root cause and knowing the how and the why and knowing all of the ins and outs were a way to heal our emotional pain, don't you think we all would be there?
seriously.
Like,
Yeah.
so some of us know our stuff so intimately at the conscious level, which then sometimes is it bites us because we're like, well, we should know better.
Yeah.
I know where this comes from, and I know I shouldn't, and I know all the things I should. But your conscious mind, if it had any power over your subconscious mind, we'd all be manifesting heaven on earth.
Seriously.
Yeah, it's so true.
So we have to start understanding that conscious mind can help or it can hinder. It is the subconscious world of entrained patterns, associative learning, motor repetitions that makes us behave the way we behave.
Yes. This is making me think of too, like there's this trend that I've come across in my personal journey with meditation where multiple times I found myself, you know, doing meditations where or having other healers guide me into these spaces where it's like, now think of your earliest childhood. It's like they take you through and then they try to take you to your earliest childhood memory of where this trauma might have originated from. And I'm like, come on. You want me to think of one childhood memory? Like I have maybe 3 memories that I can recall from like before the age of 4, and none of them are associated to this at
You know,
all.
you certainly can unwind things that way, but the beautiful thing is you don't need to.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Because that can also re-traumatize too.
Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And some of our trauma is, pre-verbal. So
Right.
you may not be able to articulate it at all because it was happening at a time where articulation wasn't even a thing.
Yeah. Yeah, and there again, it's like, okay, the only thing I've been able to fall back on is what is the somatic feeling I'm having.
Mhm, mhm.
But then it's like that moment of resistance of knowing that I'm not going to be able to pinpoint a specific memory takes me out of what I was hoping to receive from it.
Right.
Yeah, this is so fascinating.
I know. Can you talk a little bit about your Neurosculpting Institute and how that works?
So I do have a brick and mortar institute here in Denver, but to be honest, about 70% of our students are all across the world. So we always have online. We teach classes in foundational neurosculpting. We do, fun special, like right now I'm doing a 60-day program where I'll take a group through goal setting and meditation, brain optimization, and then, meditations to support their specific goals. Um, During the last year of COVID, I took the opportunity to reproduce all of our online content. So our beginner, intermediate, and advanced courses online are the best I've ever done. And these are high quality audio files for meditation, high quality video, amazing curriculum design. So I've built into these learning tracks, getting the user really self-sufficient in both the use of the meditations, but then getting them autonomous in the fact that by the time you're done with these courses, you can create your own meditations. You can find the application without needing a guide anymore, and you understand the physiology and you understand why you're doing everything. And those are all self-paced with tons and tons of resources and support and activity guides and lots of interaction with me. And that's what we do at the Institute. And then we have a membership which is very, very inexpensive. And that membership gives the member a discount on courses, but also twice a month we meet on Zoom. And I guide a new meditation every month, and they get to keep that as a download and build their own library. And we do a community discussion once a month to help people feel resourced and supported and not alone. And that's what we do at the Institute. And then we have a certification program where we certify people to be neurosculpting practitioners who can either teach classes or build their own private practice. Yeah, that's what we do here.
That's awesome. I feel like I need to sign up.
I know. I was like, I'm already looking at your website, like, where do I register?
Join me. I would love to have you join me. And I do teach practically. I mean, I don't teach everything. You know, sometimes some of our practitioners are teaching other things here, but I'm generally the one teaching all the neurosculpting. So I like to interact with my people.
Oh, I love this so much.
Well, we always like to end with this one same question that we ask all our guests, which is, what is that piece of wisdom that you hold your life to, or that you live your life by now that you've gone through this whole journey and where you're at right now?
Two things. First one is you're never broken. Even if you feel broken, you're never broken, because as long as you have a brain in your head, it can reshape. So you're never broken. And the second thing is life is really short, and no amount of being right or trying to prove you're right is going to change the fact that you are not guaranteed tomorrow. So what would you rather be when you die? Right more times than not, or loved and having loved. And that's kind of what I try to live by.
Wow. I think I really needed to hear, especially that second one. It's like, I can't stress how relevant that is. Having just gone through the last couple of days with some of the things I've been dealing with, thank you so much for that. That's
so welcome.
Oh, it's like it hit home. And also, I guess lastly, how can people find you?
Ooh. People can find me on Instagram at Neurosculpting. They can go to the website, neurosculpting.com. They can download NeuroPraxis app in the App Store, and Facebook, Neurosculpting.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Lisa. This was like such a joy, such a pleasure. Like, I feel like both of us, our heads are exploded, and now we want to be students.
Come join me. I had such a fun time talking with you. I'm sure there's lots more fun things we can do.
Oh yeah.
Oh, and just for anyone who does want to register and sign up. So I know you have like a monthly registration that you can either. I have personally registered through the app for like a monthly subscription, but is that different than the subscription for your site and your services there?
Yeah, the NeuroPraxis app is its very own thing. If you want to be a member of the neurosculpting community through the Institute, that's its own separate thing.
Awesome.
Sweet.
This is amazing. Thank you so much. I am so excited to share everything about this.
Yeah, it's so good to talk to both of you.
Music for Woo New is composed by Adam Miller.